Serious, what's something that mentally and/or emotionally broke you? Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy. Thanks. My fight died the day after we got engaged. My house caught fire when I was sleeping and I saw my baby's crib go up in flames. He survived, but it fucked me up hard. My boy is 7 now and other than his scarring, is a happy, healthy and awesome little dude. If you're feeling brave, here's a picture of his crib https://imgr.com/a/to tjwvdu the next day. Lastly, we survived thanks to a working smoke alarm. Check yours today. It could save a life. Filing my dad's bankruptcy, getting him diagnosed for early onset Alzheimer's, a dementia, and being his primary caregiver. It completely reverses the father-son role in a way I was not prepared for. Better now, but still is heartbreaking. Just went through a divorce. One day I'm up, the next I'm down. Today I'm pretty fucking down. My little cousin 19 hung himself in October. That feeling of holding his cold body as I cut him down from his noose will forever haunt me. I dream of it often, finding my twin brother dead. My 5-year-old got diagnosed with brain cancer. When the police told me my fiancé had been killed by a drunk driver immediately outside of our neighborhood. It didn't help that the police lost the driver in the hospital, letting him escape for about 30 hours. I was trafficked. Took me a long time to be back to kind of normal. The depth of just how terribly my mother has handled the situation with my oldest brother. At 17, I realized he was grooming me. I told on him, and it was swept under the rug. I was made to suffer in silence while he was allowed to be hostile to me as long as it was passively aggressive. I was not allowed to talk about what had happened. Reporting him wasn't even an offer extended to me, and I never went to therapy for it while I lived at home. I found out later, after I moved out, that a different sister of mine had been groomed as well. It started when she was roughly 8 years old and had continued into her teen years. My mother discovered it when one came forward about how he was grooming me. My mother made my sister keep it a secret from me and, thus, made me think it was an isolated incident. 2.5 weeks ago, my youngest sister told me she had been molested by that very same brother. I determined that based on the timeline she gave me this had been happening around the same time I told our mother he had been grooming me, which meant that my mother, even after knowing what he had been doing to 2 of her daughters already, did not act to protect my youngest sister from him. Or, rather, she did because she kicked him out after he was found to be trying to peep on her at night. But she never dug deep enough into the situation to realize he had been doing more than peeping during the time she hadn't realized he was doing things. Each of these 3 instances has fucking broke me emotionally. And this last time, it broke me really hard, because as I drunkenly cried to my college best friend, I had thought the nightmare was finally over, and instead I realized it had never ended. And if left in the hands of my mother, it never would. We'd keep finding out stuff like this, over and over, until someone with moral integrity made it end. The wound would keep opening, for me, each time I thought about how someone else had gone through what I did, or worse. And, honestly, I think this 3rd time broke things beyond repair. I reported my brother to CPS for what he has done, and told everyone who already knew about the situation that I had done so. The result is, pretty much none of my family that I wasn't already estranged from will talk to me. I knew that was going to be the result. It was part of what had kept me from reporting over my own abuse, and yet, this time, I did not care. Because realizing that the nightmare won't end if it keeps getting swept under the rug made me realize that I have to make it end regardless of the personal cost to me. Otherwise, we run the risk of children we don't even know having their own personal hell inflicted on them by my brother. In my eyes, we had a moral duty to make sure my brother couldn't hurt anyone else, and one was the only one strong enough to both see and act on it. I don't regret the choice I made. I'd do it again in a fucking heartbeat. But, hell, did I have to break to make that choice, and have I broken more since actually doing it? So, let me add some context before too many more people go around thinking I am the morally superior one in this situation. I left out some smaller details because, frankly, I thought I'd just yell into the void and this would not gain much attention. My youngest sister is 17. She was molested 8 years ago and only just discovered 2.5 weeks ago what had happened. She wanted the choice to control when and how it came out that she had been molested, and I promised her I would respect that. Except, after talking to my therapist a few times, I decided that was not a promise I could keep, and so I broke my promise. My sister has had to tell all her younger siblings what was done to her so that when CPS shows up on their doorstep they're not shocked. My older brother lives an hour or so away from them. He does not have ready access to them and was already forbidden from coming over to their place. So other children were in danger, but none of my siblings were. By and large, the danger to my family was already over with. My choice was also not just one of selflessness and a desire to protect other children. I kind of wanted to see everything go up in metaphorical flames. I relished the thought of my mother facing to face the family and explain why she had swept all of this under the rug and why she wasn't the one to report it. I relished the thought of my older brother losing fucking everything over this. I enjoy the thought of him suffering for what he did, the very way he made me suffer my whole childhood while he bullied me for my autism. I know what I did would hurt my youngest sister and make her feel like the situation was out of her control. I knew it, and I did it. Took control away from a victimized person because I selfishly wanted the nightmare to be over for me, for her and my other sister too. Mind you, one also wanted the nightmare to be over, but ultimately, I wanted it over with for me most of all. So rest assured, at least in my own eyes, I am not the hero here. I did the right thing, for both the right and wrong reasons, knowing that it would throw someone else's world into chaos. I do not deserve praise. I do not deserve compliments. Frankly, I don't know what I feel like I deserve, but being treated like some hero isn't it. Boat pulling us lost all electricity after a larger boat passed, and it crashed hard over the wake. I was 800 in the air, attached to a steel contraption with my 2 kids on either side of me, with the massive ropes above us leading to the parachute sail. It created enough drag that the impact wasn't as horrific as it could have been, but plummeting hundreds of feet through the air into the ocean and then realizing the metal contraption is pulling you and your kids under. My son couldn't get on his back, so his life vest wasn't working properly. My daughter was screaming because her arm was tangled in the rope. My son was 7, she was 9. Coast Guard was called in for rescue. Fuck. It was in 2020. I will never be the same person. I have flashbacks every day. Sorry if that was unclear. When I was 13 and told my family that I'd been raped by a grown man that had taken me and 2 other underage friends of mine to a motel to roofie us, my grandmother scowled at me with disgust as I sat there with my tail between my legs, feeling more shame than I'd ever felt. She told me I needed to learn how to keep my legs closed. I got a huge talking to from the adults and was punished and slut-shamed. I'm 31 now, and the thought of this still gives me a pain in my chest. Watching my grandma on my mom's side go through hospice, I have never seen a human slowly deteriorate like that. I was happy to think I would get to spend some time with her and comfort her because the year prior my other grandma died unexpectedly and I never got to say bye. As each day went on, she slowly lost any ability to think or properly communicate, to the point that it was like her mind was already gone. When she was close to death, she was making these gargling sounds that sounded like she was drowning. That sound alone is something I will never forget. It was the worst experience of death I have ever experienced. It was literally watching a person you love just slowly fade away mentally. The amount of weight she lost in just those few days. Wife died from cancer in 2007. She was 50 and we'd been married 29 years. She was the light of my life, and although I function, I will never be the same. Moving to the different country and realizing how incompatible I am. Messing around with polyamory in my marriage, which led to a very hard split. I should have checked myself into a hospital during that time. I'm very lucky I didn't permanently end things for myself. It's not right for me, but it is right for her. I also did not have a healthy view in it and basically just used it for sex with others because I didn't want to build relationships with other people other than my wife. I had great sexual experiences, but when the relationship between me and my wife collapsed, it left me in a place with no support system because my friends were originally her friends. I was questioning my masculinity and sexuality greatly, and I was completely wrecked from the experience. It has taken a lot of work on myself and therapy to be at a place of happiness now. I was acquitted, but I lost everything in the processes. It wasn't just the arrest, it was the whole system and procedures along the way that broke me. I had always defended cops and the judicial system, but you would never know unless you are pulled through it. First, after the arrest, I was fired. I was a bar manager for a huge ho near Yosemite. I guess they thought of me as a liability, but when I asked why I was fired, they said, "We don't have to give you a reason." But I later found out that was the reason. Then I just watched my house foreclosed, my car stolen and destroyed, and everything else storage auction went away. By the time I was arraigned, it was all gone. I watched how the doc kept extending and prolonging the trial, saying he was still investigating while my court-appointed lawyer kept getting me to pull bargain. I had to show court every time, so all they were trying to do is get me to not show. Nobody cared if I was innocent. They just want their conviction percent to stay high. Anyway, I was found not guilty in 10 minutes by a jury. It took 5 years of my life, and no lawyer would call back when I wanted to sue. Cops are untouchable. I'm a whole different person since this occurred. I hate going anywhere. I don't trust anyone. I hate cops and courts, and I don't trust them keeping us safe anymore. It's just a business, that's all. Cops pull in the sales and courts make sure pay. Seeing my mom and dad fight every day and not divorcing. The most heartbreaking was when I saw my dad crying while my mom was screaming at him during an argument, and I had to intervene and hugged him and got him some water to make him stop crying. Wiping tears off my dad's face broke me that day, and then went to my mom to do the same. That was actually the first time I ever hugged my mom and my dad, and that was to stop them from arguing while both of them were crying on my shoulder. Sad. During another argument, when my mom went to sleep constantly crying, I woke up next day while she was praying loudly and still crying, and I touched her shoulder and she freaked out and started acting like a mentally ill patient, screaming and crying and physically pushing us aside as if she was scared of us coming closer to her. I guess either she was exaggerating, she does that a lot, or she was actually deeply traumatized by that particular fight. My life is filled with even more traumatizing events, but these are the most recent ones. I was viciously attacked by a pit bull that ripped half my face apart. While I was in there, I called my girlfriend, who I loved, and she broke up with me right there over the phone. This led to extreme alcoholism and zero self-confidence, as I looked like a monster. It took about 5 years to recover from the incident. I still have PTSD if a bigger dog runs up to me without a leash. I have to be on meds to avoid panic attacks if they happen to trigger. Death in the family. Wasn't in the car accident, but it really messes with my head to think about how I said for them to have a great day, then for them to just be gone no less than 24 hours later. The monotonous life I'm living, like a robot. It's a never-ending nightmare.